Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. Today I've got some huge stories, but first, Happy New Year! 2021 was beyond depressing, but I'm hoping this year can be a really great one. From a ton of releases right around the corner to the potential of finally getting past this GPU shortage. Either way, while I don't usually do a video on the weekend, my schedule's been really off, but I'm hoping to be back to normal on Monday. Regardless, I've got some big news that I had to go over today. Starting with a monster PCI Express 5.0 SSD, make your DDR5 board work on DDR4, Intel's screwing us, and AMD's Ryzen 6000 APUs have finally done it. Okay, it's news time, and first up for today, Intel's own Ryan Shrout recently shared a video where he goes over one of the first PCI Express 5.0 SSDs. And this is pretty interesting, but right now PCI Express 5.0 is kind of in a weird state. So far, the only thing that could even possibly support it is the Z690 boards with Intel's new Alder Lake, but Z690 boards don't really have full support for at least M.2 SSDs. So because of that, you either have to specifically get an ASUS board. They're one of the only ones that actually has a PCI Express 5.0 on the board, and that's because they actually added their own controller and all of that. And actually, if you are currently looking for a Z690 board, I definitely suggest checking out my video where I went over my picks for top Z690 boards based on pricing categories. So yeah, you can do it that way, or you can do something like buy a PCI Express card that converts it to a PCI Express 5.0 M.2. Either way, this right here, the one that he actually showed, is not coming to the consumer market, but regardless, it gives you an idea of the speeds. Now, he actually compared it to, you can see here, a WD Black PCI Express 4.0, which got sequential read speeds that topped out around 7 GB per second. With that said, the Samsung PCI Express 5.0 got all the way up to 13.7 GB per second. So right around double the speed. With that said, write speed was reportedly around 6.6, but of course that is more or less to be expected. Still, significant boost over PCI Express 4.0. And next up for today, if you are someone who actually purchased a Z690 board, or you're thinking about getting one specifically with DDR5 for something like future-proofing, you may have noticed that DDR5 pricing is absolutely absurd right now. You can see here we're looking at a single 16 GB DDR5 memory, $244.99. This one already has bids, it has a couple hours left, $375, although it is 32 GB, but still significantly more expensive than DDR4. Well, you may actually be in luck, as it looks like ASUS is working on a DDR4 RAM adapter for DDR5 motherboards, meaning you can see right here that it's just a little adapter, not the best looking thing out there, but it basically takes DDR5, a DDR5 memory slot, and converts it for use with DDR4. So what I like about this is the fact that if you already bought a DDR5 motherboard, yet you haven't been able to actually get the memory because it's pretty much sold out everywhere or absolutely absurd prices on eBay, this could be a good solution for you. If anything though, I think it just shows how terrible the market is right now with all these shortages. The fact that we're even having to do something absurd like this just so you can get your motherboard working, at least to me, is pretty ridiculous. Still, if you are thinking about purchasing a Z690 motherboard with DDR5 support rather than older DDR4, this could be a decent solution for you, if of course it comes out. This is really just something we know they're working on. Now, while that is some fairly decent news, we actually have some bad news because Intel is also working on something, but it's pretty absurd. As you can see right here, Igor's lab states that Intel is completely disabling AVX 512 on Alder Lake. For those who don't know, you can actually disable the Gracemont efficiency cores and just use the Golden Cove cores or P cores, and that would use AVX 12. And as you can see right here, at least obviously in workloads that are able to use AVX12, you can see that P-cores only with AVX12 actually does better, because lower is better in this scenario with Y-Cruncher than both the P and E cores without AVX12. So it can use half the cores and therefore obviously less energy. So this is fairly important in certain workloads that use the AVX512 instruction set. So if you're someone who actually uses this instruction set, you would have to buy their more expensive Xeon processors instead of just the regular CPUs, or especially if you're, like a smaller server or something like that uses it, you could purchase a regular mainstream CPU. Basically, they're artificially crippling Alder Lake for no reason except to try and sell more expensive CPUs. Now, Igor's lab does try to claim that there could be another reason, specifically because the AVX2 instruction set limited Intel's multiplier, where you basically could not get to 5.2 gigahertz. You could only get to 5.1 in things that use AVX2. So you could argue that this is just a way for Intel to make it where you don't damage your CPU, because they absolutely do limit the clock rate no matter what you do with your quote-unquote unlocked CPU. Well, let's be honest, I don't buy that. It might be a reason, but I highly doubt it. If you ask me, like I said, I really do think this points to them artificially lowering it just so they can sell more expensive Xeon CPUs. And lastly for today, we have a really interesting story for AMD's upcoming Ryzen 6000 APUs, codenamed Rembrandt. As you can see here, this was done by WCCF Tech, and according to their sources, they actually were able to get a hold of basically the entire spec sheet for AMD's upcoming APU lineup for notebooks. And it's seriously impressive here because AMD has finally done it. First up, as you can see, we have the 6980HX, which once again is Zen 3+, so this is based on the slightly better 6nm process, though yes, they are saying a question mark here, but at least from all the leaks we've seen so far, it absolutely suggests 6 nanometers. And of course, that does make sense of the plus next to Zen 3. This isn't a full node shrink like from 7 nanometers to 5 nanometers. This is much smaller, but still a little bit better than 6 nanometers. Either way, when we look right here, you can see it is an 8-core 16-thread CPU, but the big news here is the fact that AMD has finally reached 5 gigahertz boost, meaning their processors have finally reached that threshold of getting to 5 gigahertz stock. Completely stock, not having to do anything. And what's unbelievable here is that we're literally looking at their notebook processors. These are 45 watt plus TDP processors. Now, this is of course their high performance processors, but still, that really is a huge deal. And yes, I know that this is completely arbitrary, but at least to me, I think it's a really nice milestone that it looks like they finally hit. Then if we go down, we see the Ryzen 9 6900HX, once again 8-core 16 threads, but up to 4.9 gigahertz boost. Oh, and all of these have 16 megabytes of L3 cache, and this one is also 45 watt plus. Then we finally have the 6800H non-X, I guess you could say, just regular 6800H. Also a core 16 thread, but this one only gets up to 4.7 gigahertz. And I guess you could say this shows just how far we've really come, the fact that I can literally say only 4.7 gigahertz for Ryzen on a notebook. That really is impressive. This one is 35 to 45 watts. Remember that AMD's upcoming Ryzen 6000 APUs are set to finally be done with Vega. And at least if you ask me, that really is a big move. And from what we've seen, AMD's Navi is going to get a massive boost in iGPU performance. So if you're having a hard time getting a discrete GPU, this could be a fairly decent answer. Though of course, we'll have to wait a little while until we actually get them on desktop, but at least for the notebook space, I think this will be really nice. Either way, as far as the release, we're obviously getting this information because it's going to be coming at CES just in a few days. And of course, if you aren't subscribed, make sure to do that and hit the bell icon. I'm going to be covering CES quite a bit, so of course, if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe. And with all of that said, that does it for today. I do hope you liked the video. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. And of course, let me know what you think about AMD's upcoming APUs. Are you excited about those? Oh, and What about Intel removing AVX 512 on Alder Lake? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always, have a great day.